What is different about family mediation?
Well, I think the most obvious difference that anyone will recognize is the emotional content and the emotional context of family mediation. It's really important that we don't underestimate the significance of relationship breakdown and just how traumatic it is. And I think any of us who know somebody or who's been through it, or God forbid, have been through it ourselves, will understand just how devastating relationship breakdown can be. And that devastation is brought into the mediation room and the mediation process. I think one of my favorite quotes on this, or ways of describing this, is a quote by Simmel, who was really one of the founding fathers of family mediation. And in 1971, if you'll bear with me, I'd just like to read out this quote, which I think encapsulates just how grim relationship breakdown can be. So what he says is, the deepest hatred grows out of broken love. To have to recognize that a deep love, not only a sexual love, was an error, a failure of intuition, so compromises us before ourselves, so splits the security and unity of our self-conception, that we unavoidably make the object of this intolerable feeling pay for it. So I think it's a very eloquent way of saying that when we've made a decision to stay with somebody, to form a relationship with somebody, and that then breaks down, that breakdown is so challenging to our sense of self and our sense of identity that we cannot but be massively angry with the other person. So that is the kind of context that family mediation operates in. So it is different from maybe a commercial dispute or a workplace dispute, which of course all involve emotions and potentially strong emotions as well. But this really goes to the heart of our identity, which is why family conflicts can be so intractable. So that's the emotional context is one of the differences. From a completely different angle then, in practical terms, we also see a multitude of different tasks for the mediation process. We need to look at very practical matters like finances and living arrangements. There's planning for the future. There are children, of course, to be looked at, the greater family system, even the really practical issues like how are we going to afford to live in two separate houses? So there's a big agenda there for a mediator and their clients to deal with. And finally, then, which I think is very important to bear in mind as well, is the challenge that family mediation kind of poses around the fact that parties, on the one hand, are separating and extricating themselves from their intimate relationship, but in most cases, or many cases where they have children, will need to continue in a relationship for the sake of those children, albeit a different type of relationship. So you have this changing from an intimate romantic relationship to a hopefully at least tolerable, if not friendly, co-parenting relationship. And that is very challenging because what people often say when they come to family mediation is, I want closure. I want this to be over. I don't ever want to have to deal with him or her again, which of course isn't realistic when children are in the frame. So there are a lot of things going on in family mediation that the mediator needs to be aware of and that the process needs to take into account.